that this conference is the most heartwarming experience that I had among all other space conferences. So I'm really happy to be here. All right, so a little bit about myself. I started as a space journalist, then I decided that I need to follow my dream and become a cosmonaut. And involved in different space projects. So I was in Mars 160, organized by Mars Society. We spent 3 months in Utah Desert and then 1 month in uninhabitable islands in Arctic. After that, I started to work at, sorry, you don't hear? Okay. Yeah, I think I should be like that. Yeah, after that, I decided to take my second degree in engineering because nobody would consider you seriously in Russia if you're just a journalist and a girl. Yeah. And started to work in the Institute of Biomedical Problems. It's a leading organization that was created by Korolev. I guess many of you know him. It's the guy who sent Gagarin to space. This organization studies space medicine and biology, so everything that is connected to animals and human beings in extreme environment. And and after that I was part of Sirius mission. It's a project together with NASA, so it's a series of different isolation experiments in different duration. Then I tried again to get into the cosmonaut selection. Let's put it this way, it's quite prejudiced towards, females. So then I said, okay, I had enough. I used all my chances in my country, which I love, but unfortunately now no possibilities to grow there. And now I'm here studying in Colorado School of Mines, doing my PhD on space resources. And okay, let's go. So, of course, before we send anything into space, we need to test it here on Earth. And it's not only towards the technology, but also human beings. We started to do that back in 1967. So this is the first experiment here in Starship. Just imagine 3 men spent a year in a 12 square meters. Yeah, it's tough. Their relatives, their wives, they didn't know about it. It was a secret project. They said that they are in Antarctic station. It was a closed life support system, so they've been drinking water from recycled from their urine. And on the day 76, there was connected greenhouse, which is 6 meters long, and they felt really good about it because otherwise, just imagine to spend time in 12 square meters. So yeah. And they had problems, of course. For example, doctor, what is the paradox? Because doctor had abscess behind his ear, and so he had to operate himself in order not to stop the experiment. There have been, of course, conflicts, but not like wild ones. And it's interesting that the 2 guys that had conflict, they came out fine, but the guy that was in the middle, and he came out with stomach problems. So he was so stressed that he's in the middle, and yeah. And another interesting story. They've been communicating with outside world by microphone, and one day one of the crew members heard this nice female voice. He fell for this voice, and secretly was writing her letters and putting them into soil in the greenhouse. And so that's how they've been communicating. And when he came back to Earth, they got married. Yeah. So it's a really nice story. And this experiment proved that although it's quite a small space where they stay, it still was successful. And since then, IBMP continued towards this kind of experiments. Back in 2000, we built this huge module. So this is 3D model, and you can see it's almost all of the modules are cylindrical. So compared to the same size that we had on the Soyuz ship. So the diameter of airlock is 60 centimeters. It's also quite interesting and challenging to put anything inside of the station. Not only the size-wise, but also because this station is fully hermetic with its own atmosphere and air pressure. And you really need to consider which materials you would put in there so they wouldn't gas. And our crew would stay there healthy and safe. This is Mars 500. Maybe many of you heard about this project. It's still record-breaking because 520 days, 6 crew members spent in this space station. Experiment is also interesting because the funny thing is that you can see this Chinese crew member. So he didn't speak Russian and English. Yes, and of course we've been worried how this would go, but since his government said no, that's your mission, he said okay, I will do that. And surprisingly, after I think 1 month or 2, we saw how they communicate with each other quite easily. So yeah, I think it's like a space language. And for this mission, the legend or like scenario was that they fly to the Mars, spend on Mars just few days. They had EVA, which you can see on the right, yeah. And then they fly back. So they had to bring with them all the food, and crew should be very wise using this food because just imagine if they eat everything good and tasty, and then they would have like 4 months left with, I don't know, dried potatoes. All the crew members lost weight, and there have been different moments in their mood, of course, but still they managed to get it through the end. This is still one of the most interesting experiments, and we collected a lot of data from that, especially on psychology and physiology. And as I said before, we started a new series of experiments with NASA Human Research Program. First we had 2 weeks isolation experiment with another crew. Then in 2019 we had 4 months isolation experiment where I took part of. And now actually we have 8 months experiment. So our crew went inside in November, and we've been worried due to situation that is now that they might come out earlier, but no, science is still not into politics, hopefully. Yeah, and we're hoping to see them in July. And it's a challenge because 4 months it's long, but still you can manage it. And 8 months is it's a different scale. And we are planning, if everything is okay, to have a 1-year experiment and then another 1 year. So the crew is international. In my case, it was Russians and Americans, and we need to know both languages, Russian and English. And what is the coolest part? Our crew commander is a real cosmonaut who flew to ISS in 2014, so we've been learning a lot from him. I know that many of you would think, why this looks like sauna? Yes. And getting back to my notes regarding the materials that they shouldn't gas. So back then, they decided to use wood. Of course, we're not going to take it into space wood, but we really now need to consider which materials we would use. And I'm aware that, I'm sure that there will be new kind of materials not looking like it would, but much more light and safe. But now we have what we have. And also psychologists said that this will be good for mental health of the group. I don't know. I would yes, I would change the design. Yeah. So here you see, this is the living room, and this module is module which is 50 cubic meters, and usually it's closed and it simulates cargo ship or a lander. So in our case, we had this scenario that we are flying from Earth to the orbital moon station and stay there several months. Then 4 of us go to this lander and fly to the moon, stay there for a week, and then come back to orbital station. So we've been doing kind of like Artemis project. And since we don't have much space for the EVAs, we decided to use virtual reality, and actually it was quite a good mix. You can see here the missions control room. So at this station we have around 80 cameras. Of course, it's not in a toilet, a shower, and not in crew quarters. But the cameras are quite good, so our scientists could see anything that we are writing or that we are doing. Sound wasn't recorded, and they couldn't hear us speaking, which is good. But yeah, I think after maybe a week, we forgot that there are cameras everywhere, and we just lived our life as usual. So yeah, twice a day we had to communicate with mission control, and we had to actually conduct more than 70 experiments on psychology, physiology, and basically our day was very busy, and we really felt like we're guinea pigs because they wanted from us almost all of our parts. I mean, like blood, urine, number 2, even hair. And I was like, okay, what's next? Our sweat and tears? But maybe, who knows? Yes. So we had different experiments which tested the level of cortisol, like extreme experiments, and then they've been taking our saliva and our hair and then looking at the level of cortisol there. Also we had sleep deprivation. They wanted to see how well we'll continue work after 36 hours without sleep. And many different other interesting torture-looking experiments. Yeah, so you can see it here, just the basics. And we've been learning how to do the ultrasound. My God, I didn't know it's so complicated. All organs look the same for me. So, yeah. And apart from isolation and confinement, we also have another extreme factor, it's microgravity. So we cannot send like heavy equipment, all the scientists into space to study the microgravity, how it affects the human body. So here on Earth we created the model that simulates major negative factors on microgravity. That's the bath, filled with water, covered with waterproof foil, and you can see the test subject inside. So you go there and spend several days, and this kind of condition, like unsupported position, it simulates the 3 major negative factors. Yep. So the story behind this, when there was a flight in the Soyuz capsule for 17 days, 2 cosmonauts hardly moved in this small Soyuz spaceship, and when they came back to Earth, they couldn't even get out from the spaceship. They had heart problems, of course, muscle atrophy, and after this experience, IBMP decided to create this model. The first models of dry immersion were actually wet immersion, so there was no waterproof foil, and just imagine that as a test subject you're in the water for several days. Of course they start to have skin problems. then they changed it to dry immersion. And the longest period, just imagine, it's 57 days being in this bath. Yeah, and for 50 years, it was only male test subjects, and I was wondering, like, why, you know? So women, they are not going to space, or we don't need to study them, they're like robust enough, I don't know. And they told me, well, several reasons. Yes, in Soviet times mostly men were flying, so they didn't see the point of it. And then the toilet, like how it's much more complicated for us than for you guys. So they've been working on a device to use there. So in October 2020, we had the first female test subject dry immersion experiment, and I was one of them. So I felt how it is to be even more isolated. We started with 3 days, so I spent 3 days in the bath, and it's really interesting experience when your body doesn't listen to you. Any commands that you give, you find it hard to actually do something with your body. So I think in the first 2 hours, I started to lose a lot of liquid, basically peeing, and it was around 2 liters. So yeah, this happens due to rare distribution of the pressure in your body and liquid in your body. Basically, when you lay down in this bath, water has a lot of pressure on your lower part, so body wants to get rid of the excess of pressure in your inside, and you're losing a lot of liquid. On the second day, a part that I lost, I think, around like 2 kilograms of weight, I also became higher on 1.5 centimeters. Yeah. So everyone was like, wow, that's great. I can lose weight and be higher. I was like, yes. But when you're back to Earth, this in 1 day will get all back again. Yeah. So it doesn't work this way. And yes, you feel really strange. So again, small details that you're used to in life, and you don't even notice, like, you know, going to the toilet or eating, etc. There makes it very complicated. Just imagine doing this vertically and in unsupported. Your body doesn't understand what to do and where to press. Apart from this, also we had different effects on our body. So before, all the male test subjects, they had a back pain, and with female test subjects we didn't have that, and scientists found it interesting how this correlates. But this was the only difference in our reaction, and the rest was pretty much the same. So before we go into this dry immersion, we are doing the biopsy from our leg, and after, when we are back from dry immersion, we have another biopsy. So they want to see how our muscles reacted to these conditions. Also, we had like around 20 different tests on us, so we've been busy. Although you're just laying down in the bath, you're still having fun because all these scientists coming and checking on you and make you do different strange experiments, or like hitting you with a little bit of electrical. So it was fun, and you feel like a king, because for any activity that you want to do, like you want to eat or you want to drink or anything, you call a special person. So I was first day I was feeling so like shy. I was like, I wish I could do this myself. And but all the time there have been people around and watching us, because sometimes you could have really strong reaction like vomiting and headache. What's interesting, although it's only 3 days, but already we had not the heart problems, but yes, heart system started to change. So the interesting thing is that what they've been saying, that we had the worst period they said if you stay there for 5 years or longer, your body is readjusting after 3 days, and you feel great. You feel like it's your home. But we were been adjusting for 3 days for this microgravity, and then they took us out, and we had to readjust to Earth gravity. So it was quite a stress on our body. Okay, so how much time we have?
20.
20?
You have 10.
Okay.
10
Yeah.
minutes.
Apart from that, we have short radius centrifuge. This is our experiment in order to create new countermeasures for microgravity effect during long space flights. So our scientists think that the best option still is to have this kind of short centrifuge on a spaceship, of course if it's big enough, and that cosmonauts, astronauts could use it daily and this will be the best option to fight all the negative effects. I know that now they're training on ISS, but still that's not good enough. Still, astronauts come back quite weak. And here you can see that it's a longitudinal axis. This direction is usually the same direction that we are when we are walking and when we are in vertical position. So also scientists decided that that's the best way to train. Yeah, I didn't try this one because again it was only male test subjects. I was like, damn, I would have like all the set. And very interesting one. So you know that on Mars we have very low magnetic field, and then there have been experiments on mice that low magnetic field affects cognitive functions and fertility. And just imagine we send astronauts to Mars, and after 2 years they become, well, they become dumb and they couldn't use what's like all the technology and etc. And it's quite dangerous. So we decided to create this kind of a cage and simulate not the same magnetic field that on Mars, but 1,000 times less, because in space it's 10,000 times less than Earth's magnetic field. But we decided to start with this experiment, and here we have, you can see that we have to test different, to study the different reactions like cognitive functions, visual, and indicators of pain sensitivity. Their plan was, so a test subject came in and spent 24 hours in this cage. Then the next day he spends another 24 hours, but in this time magnetic field is off. So basically they've been testing like placebo version and the real version. We had like, I think we had 2 sets of experiments. Again, also male subjects. And so hopefully we'll, not there, but hopefully next year's IBMP would also include a female test subject, just to see maybe we have like really different response to that. Because I remember this chart that NASA created, the pluses and minuses of reaction of male and female body to space, to being on ISS, and actually balance is quite good. So we have some minuses there, guys have pluses there, and opposite. So I think it's the best if we travel to space together. Yeah, so if someone will lose their cognitive functions, maybe we would save them. Yeah. And you cannot bring your cell phone or computer into the cage, so you really need to use the old stuff, like chess or reading a book. But just imagine spending 24 hours sitting there in the chair in the cage. It's quite hard work. Yep. Okay, so I can, I guess, answer questions. Yeah, I thought we would have a shorter version, so yeah, thank you.
conclusion, I come to speak from space innovation angle. And I'm wondering if you could talk more about the psychological aspects of what you were going through. And my second question is about the design of annual missions. Are there any interior designers involved, or should they be? Because I think it's related to the psychological question, and I think it could help to cope with the situation.
Yeah, for sure we need interior designers for space stations. For example, in Sirius, so we didn't see the sunlight, we've been into this sauna-looking space station, and we had only 3 colors, which is wood, gray, and then we had this small island of greenhouse, which was green colors. And you really get tired from this. When I was, and the lighting also is important. When I've been to the Arctic, we had a lot of gray light, and it really affects also your mood. So first you don't notice it, but after a few weeks, yeah. So I'm really excited how would space stations look like in the future. We need to consider everything from the materials we use to lighting and colors. Psychology, yes, also interesting topic. So during these 4 months, what really helped to stay sane is exercise. So it's very important that on a space station will be at least 1 treadmill, because it makes you feel alive and it makes you feel that there's something happening. So in our usual life, we have a lot of different signals from all over the world, places, and our psychology is used to that. In isolation, we have sensory deprivation. That's the term that most psychologists are very concerned about, and this affects your mood, your productivity, even your speed of how you work, and how you react. Also, apart from that, there is a phenomenon of the third quarter. It's just in the middle of your space mission. So all of a sudden, everyone feels down, and this happens because you realize that you went through all of this, and now you need to do another half of that. And yeah, so I still think what is the best way? We know this and we expect this, and then we program us for that effect. Or if we don't know it, then we feel down and depressed. We get anxiety and worried what's happening with me. So I don't know how the best just is this. And also another effect. So in the beginning, you communicate with mission control a lot, but then you start to become more and more isolated even from the outside world, and you create the inner world, and you don't want to really communicate with mission control. You know that what you are doing here, you know it much better than them, and you have, so they say that there are several options. Either you fight inside of the crew, or you have these 2 teams, mission control and your crew. So they said that the second option is better. At least you are good with your crew, and you can, have all your complaints or aggression to the mission control. So I don't know. In our case, we thought that anytime we complained, it was really, that solid, and not because we're just grumpy and we want to complain. So apart from that, there is also concern that we still cannot test. So if we go to Mars, there is a moment when we don't see Earth, but we don't see Mars yet. And psychologists are very afraid that this moment could affect badly the crew morale. So we'll see what happens when real crew flies to Mars. And also any communication with mission control was recorded on special camera that analyzes our emotions and our mimics. And it's interesting that in the beginning, so female crew members and male, they've been reacting differently. But with the time, I think after second month, we all became similar. So we all had the same kind of reaction, blended and balanced each other. I think I find it quite fascinating. Yeah. So.
Just on that interior design
Yeah.
question, you should look up the work of the Soviet architect Galina Balashova, who designed the Soviet space stations, and she had a really extensive philosophy of like the relationship between the built environment and the psychology of the astronauts. We have time for one more quick question.
You mentioned a moment when you can't see either planet while a mission is traveling to Mars. Have there been studies, or have you looked at studies for sailors who were put in similar situations where they were on the ocean for a very long time and they couldn't see any land, or were not able to go to land for a very long time, or better yet, submariners who were stuck inside of their submarine for 6 months or more? Have those provided any data for studies like this?
Yeah, they've been citing also the Antarctic station, and they expect that there can be a moment of fear and depression, but with a proper, I guess, proper preparation and work with the crew members, like deeply work of psychologists with the crew members, maybe this can be mitigated.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. Thank you.
Thank you.